Catherine Cunningham, born around 1839 in Liverpool, England, led a mysterious early life. At just 15 years old, she worked as a barmaid at a dance hall on Paradise Street in Liverpool. Her life took a dramatic turn when she intervened in a bar fight to save a sailor named Peter Kernigan. Their relationship deepened, resulting in Cunningham becoming pregnant. After Kernigan sailed away, Cunningham gave birth to twins. She decided to leave England for America in 1856, leaving the twins behind and adopting the name Townsen. Backed by influential allies, potentially including a high-ranking police official, a recorder, and several council members, Townsen oversaw the construction of a lavish brownstone and marble brothel at 40 Basin Street. The opulent building, reportedly costing $100,000, boasted white marble fireplaces, elegant French chandeliers, furniture crafted from polished black walnut with Damascus upholstery, luxurious velvet carpets, and antiques sourced from European merchants. On July 30th, 1870, a dispute between gambler Gus Taney and Jim White, prompted by Townsen extending credit to Taney, turned fatal when White fatally stabbed Taney through the heart after Taney brandished a gun. Police responded, leaving the gun and Bowie knife as mementos with Townsen. She thereafter carried the knife for self-defense. While described as slender in her youth, Townsen later gained weight, reportedly tipping the scales at 300 pounds by the time of her passing. Townsen and Troysville Egbert Skies, known as Bill, had crossed paths not long after Townsen's arrival in New Orleans. Initially, their association was strictly professional, but over time, it evolved into a romantic entanglement. Skies, a member of a respected New Orleans family, but often viewed as the black sheep, moved into the brothel in 1878. His responsibilities included bookkeeping, odd jobs, and attracting clientele. However, the arrangement soured, leading Townsen to accuse Skies of forging her signature on checks totaling $7,000. Although Townsen dropped the charges later, their relationship deteriorated. Townsen subjected Skies to harsh treatment, once nearly severing his nose with a Bowie knife given to her by a police client, which she kept for self-defense. In October of 1883, Townsen became increasingly enamored with a young gigolo named McLearn, whom she entertained in her private quarters. When Skies voiced his objections, Townsen and McLearn subjected him to a beating. The following day, tensions escalated further. Townsen, accompanied by her head girl, Molly Johnson, entered the kitchen, seized a carving knife, and menacingly gestured as if to stab Skies in the abdomen. Johnson intervened, disarming Townsen before any harm was done. Skies entered the kitchen, prompting Townsen to assault him with a breadboard, until he collapsed and crawled away on his hands and knees. An hour later, Johnson discovered Townsen on the staircase leading to Skies' bedroom on the top floor. Townsen confessed to intending to confront Skies there, but he was nowhere to be found. Once again, Johnson managed to pacify Townsen. On the evening of November 1st, Townsen, Johnson, McLearn, and one of McLearn's acquaintances indulged in champagne at a nearby cafe. As the alcohol flowed, McLearn and Townsen engaged in a heated argument, during which McLearn jokingly threatened to smash a bottle over Townsen's head. In response, Townsen brandished her Bowie knife, prompting McLearn to clarify that his threat was in jest. Despite this, Townsen kept the knife in hand and expressed a desire to use it on someone. She then announced her intentions to return home and confront Skies, suggesting she would harm him. Townsen left the cafe, followed by Johnson. When McLearn's acquaintance, Thompson, went to Townsen's boudoir, Johnson warned Skies to lock his door. The following day, Townsen remained bedridden with a hangover, likely from the previous night's revelry. On the morning of November 3rd, Mary Philomena, the brothel's housekeeper, was alarmed by shouts and screams emanating from Townsen's room. Upon opening the door, she witnessed Townsen and Skies engaged in a violent altercation near the bed. Skies forcibly ejected Philomena from the room and locked the door. Subsequent to the commotion, there was an eerie silence. Skies emerged from the room with disheveled clothing and bloodstains, informing the housekeeper, Mary, "Kate's gone." When pressed by Philomena regarding his actions, Skies cryptically responded, "I had to do it," before ascending the stairs, visibly injured. Meanwhile, Philomena, joined by the cook, Rose Garcia, entered the room to discover Townsen lying lifeless in a pool of blood. Despite their efforts, they were unable to revive her. Officers Clark and Hormy, alerted by the disturbance, hurried to the scene. Clark departed to summon a doctor, and luckily encountered Dr. Venice nearby. Upon examination, Dr. Venice determined that Townsen had been deceased for too long for any medical intervention to be effective. Meanwhile, one of the officers observed a blood-stained Bowie knife and a pair of pruning shears in the yard through an open window. With suspicion falling on Skies as the potential assailant, Officer Clark proceeded to Skies' room. Finding Skies there, having changed his attire, Clark confronted him. Skies expressed a desire to surrender, and was subsequently apprehended and transported to the Central Police Station. Skies informed the police that upon entering the room, Townsen launched an attack with a knife concealed beneath her pillow. In self-defense, he disarmed her, but she then wielded a pair of pruning shears against him. Skies claimed that he acted in self-defense when he fatally injured her. Townsen's body was respectfully presented in the drawing room, adorned with a $600 white silk dress. To honor her wishes, champagne was served to guests during the funeral proceedings on November 5th, with the furnishing draped in white silk. A procession of 25 coaches, predominantly filled with women, trailed behind the hearse en route to Metairie Cemetery, where Townsen was laid to rest in a $400 metallic casket. On November 11th, Skies stood before a judge and was formally charged with Townsen's murder. He was then remanded to Orleans Parish Prison. The highly publicized murder trial commenced on January 29, 1884. After more than 20 witnesses testified, the jury ultimately acquitted Skies of Townsen's murder, accepting his plea of self-defense. However, the verdict sparked public outcry, with many questioning whether Skies' perceived political connections or bribery had influenced the outcome, allowing him to evade conviction. While employed as a maid on a farm in Herlufmagee, Katherine Andersdatter found herself expecting a child by the tenant. On January 3, 1853, at the age of 23, she gave birth to a daughter in Copenhagen. Unfortunately, the child's father showed no interest in assuming responsibility and departed for Sweden. Left with no means to provide for her, Andersdatter made her way to Ringsted, with the intention of putting the child up for adoption. Along the journey near Vigerslev, she paused by the edge of a ditch. As she nursed her baby, a chilling thought crossed her mind: the possibility of ending her infant's life by drowning her in the frigid waters. Regrettably, she acted on this impulse, and afterwards, buried the child's body in a nearby field. Despite efforts, the remains were never recovered. Subsequently, Andersdatter proceeded to work on a farm in Ramsau during the summer of 1854. 2 years later, Andersdatter found herself pregnant once more, this time by a fellow servant who was unfaithful to his wife. On April 3, 1855, she welcomed a son into the world. However, with her return to work looming just 3 weeks away, she knew she couldn't provide the care he needed. Initially, she entertained the idea of seeking assistance from the child's father, who was employed on a farm. Yet, recalling his past cruelty towards her, she swiftly dismissed this notion. On her journey back, she paused at a well located at the intersection of Roda Reveridge and Rodiger. There, she made a fateful decision, casting her newborn into its depths before continuing on her way. A month later, the infant's lifeless body was discovered, but lacking any tangible leads, the authorities were forced to close the case without resolution. In 1856, Andersdatter welcomed her third child, once more conceived with a servant. This time, she made the decision to bring the child home to her mother, allowing the boy to be raised under his grandmother's care. Though the couple remained unwed, in 1861, Andersdatter found herself pregnant once again, this time without the knowledge of the father. Keeping her condition concealed, she journeyed to Copenhagen on February 1st, where she gave birth to another son on February 15th, under the care of a family who had been entrusted to assist her. As for the child's father, she corresponded with him, falsely claiming to be in Caribbean, tending to her ailing mother. In early March, Anderstatter informed her hosts that her mother had arranged for a family of crofters in Caribbean to care for the child. On March 5th, she departed with the baby, intending to drown it in one of the canals at Fredericksburg Gardens. However, the presence of too many people thwarted her plan. She redirected her path to Damas Lake, only to find it similarly crowded. Recalling the well where she had disposed of her second child years prior, she waited until nightfall, when the area was deserted. With fewer witnesses, she discarded the child into the well and returned to her lodgings. There, she falsely claimed that the boy had been taken in by a family in Ringsted, as previously arranged. On March 30th, the lifeless body of an infant was discovered, leading to the arrest of Anderstatter, who was observed lurking in the vicinity. Upon her apprehension, she promptly confessed to the crime. Subsequent interrogations revealed her involvement in the deaths of 2 previous children. During her trial, 8 out of the 10 Supreme Court justices advocated for her pardon, citing the mitigating circumstances of her impoverished status as a servant and single mother, her commendable employment history, her evident remorse, and her newfound solace in faith. Anderstatter maintained that she loved her children deeply, but felt unable to provide for them without resorting to prostitution or relinquishing them to destitute farmers. Despite these pleas, she was condemned to death, a verdict endorsed by Frederick VII at the behest of the Justice Minister, with overwhelming public support. The sole deviation from the standard procedure was that the execution would be conducted in private. On December 21, 1861, amidst a misty morning, the convict was escorted to the courthouse, where a sizable crowd had gathered. With composure, she ascended the scaffold, offering a brief prayer before tucking her neck scarf into her pocket and positioning her head upon the chopping block. Moments later, the executioner swiftly swung his axe, severing her head in an instant. Following custom, the deceased was laid to rest in a black-painted coffin, deviating from the typical flat coffins crafted from boards. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button to join our community. We upload every Monday and Thursday at 4 p.m. For more content like this, be sure to check out our other videos on the channel. You can also follow us on our other social media platforms for uploads and updates. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.